welcome to your highly anticipated luxury 60-minute session of myofascial release. I have a lot of feedback about the length of the videos from you, people doing the videos, which is why they're usually between 30 and 45 minutes. But I thought it would be really nice to do a slightly longer MFR video every now and again, so that you can schedule in some time to luxuriate in the release. So this video is a whole body release. It's the type of thing that would be absolutely perfect once every couple of weeks, once a week if you can fit it in, but it's perfect for all bodies, right? So whether you are doing sports, whether you're doing a lot of yoga, we're gonna start at the head and work down to the feet. The reason for that is, I've mentioned it in a video before, it's a reasonably uncommon traditional Chinese medicine pathology, but there is something called liver yang rising, where a lot of stressful energy, tense liver yang kind of build up, stress type stuff kind of gets to the head, and it can sometimes manifest in tension, headaches and stress and all those things. So I like to, when I do the whole body, kind of work down to bring the energy out of the head and into the groundedness of the legs and the feet. So what you will need, 2 balls. I have got my balls in a sock. They're going to be in and out of the sock as we go. If you have conjoined tool, you're welcome to have that handy. So you've got your 2 separate balls for when we need them. I'm just going to be taking them in and out of the sock. You might want a small towel. It's always nice to have. A couple of blocks or books. You will need as well something soft, a blanket for just one thing when we do the base of the skull. A cushion would work, or a bolster would work. I just want something under the pelvis that isn't going to be super hard and super restrictive. So we're going to get started in the base of the skull. Now we're actually going to do 3 things for this. So have your soft prop handy, and I've just got mine stacked. All we're doing is going to put it under the pelvis. It doesn't need to be really high. It just needs to create maybe 1 inch to 2 of lift. You will need your block to start and have your balls in a sock or conjoined tool handy. Now, all of you, I'm sorry, you will also need a wall space for a couple of the things that we're going to do. So, your block is going to be on its middle setting. You all know this one really, really well. The corner nearest to you is coming to the base of the skull, so this little ridge of bone on the base of the skull. And then as you're ready, you can go ahead and come on down. Now start by just relaxing in. And you'll notice that I'm not at home filming this. We have some renovation work happening right under my apartment for a new restaurant that's being built. So I have escaped out of Dodge away from drilling and fencing sound. So no row today, I'm afraid. Now, start with, so apologies for the slight echo that is present in this room. I'd rather you have an echo than drills. So once you have got the block behind the base of the skull, give your shoulder blades just a tiny nudge away, and then start to rock your head side to side. So because this is a full body experience, we're kind of touching on certain points, but working energy down. So this is a really nice practice. Again, think recovery, restoration, rejuvenation. If you're recovering from being sick or travel, this is kind of your off day practice, if you will. So you're just rocking your head right and left. Obviously, you are welcome to stay on a particular tender spot and make little circles. You can absolutely do that. But for this one, we're actually doing 3 for this point, 2 with the balls. This is just checking out what's going on. 2, excuse me. I'm also going to give you a lot of space in this class, in this video. But know that if any of the points that we touch on you want more time, make friends with the pause button. It's kind of the beauty of this home practice, right? You can do something again, you can take something away from it, you can really model it to what you need. But I felt that we were in need of something for the whole body, like all the major muscle groups, so we tap into this whole like jumpsuit of fascia. Now, once you've just marked the points on the base of the skull, come back to center. You're going to knock your block down to setting low and just rest your head there. And then grab your balls. Now, the balls are going to be next to one another in their little sock or conjoined, and they're going to go to that same point, but on the block. So make sure that your block is steady, right? You're not kind of teetering right on the edge. Now, again, do what you need to. If your hair is long enough to cover the balls, I like to take my hair over. It's a personal choice, and if you have a ponytail, you might have to shift it. I like knees bent. You can, of course, straighten them, just be comfortable. But have your arms down by your sides, shoulder heads heavy, palms facing up. Now, all we're going to do is start to make little figure 8 movements. Think about the nose as being where the pen is, if you will. And the rest of your head is just gonna slide in these little figure 8s. Now the beauty of this movement is you can do it fast or slow. Different days for me work different ways. Some days I like to move really fast. Today I'm kind of just being pulled to a little slower. And then just return to pause, so your chin just lightly tucks in towards the chest, you're not forcing it. And then just slightly turn your head to the left, almost like you were doing that figure 8, but you stop to the left. And then you can just scrub a little up and down. So you're a little bit more on this left side. Try not to turn your head so much that the right side lifts up, that kind of calibrates a little bit weird. Try and relax your shoulders here. That's something that I'm always having to remind myself of. And then come back to the center. And then imagine you were going to start that figure 8, but to the right. And when you feel just a little more pressure on that right side, you're just going to nod. Tiny little nods here. So this is such a nice place to start, right? Particularly if you're coming in with a busy mind, like a full of stuff head. You're tapping straight into some of these gallbladder meridian points, which are also really calming and really steadying. Now come back to center, depending on your neck. If it's very sensitive, you'll want to take the balls out before you put the blanket under your pelvis. If you're pretty happy, you can go ahead and lift your hips up and just slide that blanket in with the balls underneath you. But be careful, sometimes that can be a little like destabilizing. So the slightest lift with something soft. So don't put a block under here, make it a towel or a cushion or something that's got a little bit of give to it. Then you're going to have the balls exactly where they just were. And what you're going to do here is move your pelvis through cow and cat. So relax your head, relax your shoulders. And you're just making these tiny little movements. Now you'll notice that as you tilt the pelvis, your head, the tiniest little bit, goes along for the ride, right? So your head kind of nods and lifts, but that's by virtue of the pelvis. So try and relax the rest of your body, relax the rest of the spine, and just kind of let the spine ride this very gentle wave of anterior-posterior tilt of the pelvis, which in turn creates a little nod and lift of the chin and the nose. And this is tiny, right? Like it's really small. And just do a couple more like that. Now, neutralize the hips, take a breath in, let your head just hang off the balls. And then you're going to take the balls out head onto the block. Take the blanket or the cushion out, hips onto the floor. And then go ahead and take the block out and just pause. And if you want to do anything different with your legs, you can. You might just stretch out your big star for a moment. Take an inhale and an exhale. Now go ahead and roll yourself over to one side and mindfully press yourself up. Now we're going to keep the balls in their sock or use your conjoint tool, and we're going to go to the mid upper back. So you can think about that kind of bra strap line or heart rate monitor line, or just kind of underneath the armpits. So I'm just here underneath the shoulder blades. So you might want to keep the block for the head. It's about 50-50, people that like that. I like it, you might not. So you might be happy with your head on the ground. I'm going to take my balls next to one another and place them just to the mid-back. And then from here, you might need to kind of jiggle around a little, just get comfortable. Now, you can always just be still here. And remember, this is an acupressure point for liver, right, for wood element. There's no stress, burning candle at both ends. If that's you, you might just want to stay here, cross your arms, and make the movement really minimal. If you feel though, like when I was prepping this class, I actually like a bit of movement, you're going to catch your head, lift your head up, and I sometimes just need to adjust, and you'll feel it. Then your feet come to the floor, and that tilt that we just did with the pelvis, you're going to do it again. So you're letting your head just rest into your hands are acting as a little barrier. And you're probably only rolling maybe an inch to an inch and a half. But again, less is more, and slow it down. So we're not kind of going in and like attacking or like fighting. And you'll probably find that you only want maybe 5 or 6, 7 of those little curls. When you feel that you've exhausted that, just relax down. Take a breath in and a breath out. Now we're going to do that exact same thing, but with the balls between the shoulder blades. So I like to just lift myself up, very slightly press into my head on the block, and just move the balls up right dead center in the middle of my shoulder blades. And same thing, you can just be still, give yourself a little hug, wiggle side to side, or that same thing that we just did, lift the head up, plant your feet, and find a little tilt, and tuck, and tilt, and tuck. But I want you to go slowly, like don't channel the dude bros at the gym, you know, who are like rubbing themselves all over their foam rollers like, you know, a cat trying to own something. You're just really slow, like taking your time and feeling into the compression and the little crackety cracks that might come. And again, you'll probably only want about 5 or 6 of these passes. When you feel that that's done, you can rest your head back down. You might have traveled a little bit, and relax. Take a breath in and a breath out. Now go ahead and take the balls out. Now this is where, if you have your balls in a sock, you're going to take them out. We're going to go for the traps. Now we're going to do the traps in a slightly different way. This is a way that I've been kind of working on myself in the last few months, just kind of adapting some training for some different places. Not that the supported bridge arm movement one isn't fantastic. So if you love block underneath your hips and then all the movements, please stick with what you like. Otherwise, you're going to take the block away, and we're still going to the same point, so upper traps, right, just on the corner between the neck and the shoulders. So I'm going to go ahead and wedge one ball in, wedge the other ball in. Now, option if you've got your block under your hips, do whatever it is that you normally do. Otherwise, reach your arms overhead, lift your hips a little bit, move your hips to the left, reach reach your arms over to the right. And then return to center, and you can lower your hips in between if you like. And then shimmy the hips to the right, slide the arms to the left. And then just kind of find a groove where you're just kind of scrubbing yourself, hips go in the opposite direction. And this doesn't have to be your deepest back bend. One thing you might find with this is that the balls migrate a little bit and you have to kind of come and put them back in, and that's fine. So hips move to the left, head is on the floor, reach the left arm over to the right, and then recenter, and then hips go right, and the right arm reaches up and over. And then you can find a few scrubs of this. Again, my balls have just done a little migrate. The great thing about this one is you're also catching levator, levator scapulae, the one that we sometimes do at the wall. So this can be a really nice one because it's getting all of the layers underneath and kind of plowing them in towards the spine, which can be really nice. Those of you on the block in the more traditional form, do whatever it is that you're comfortable doing. If ever your back wasn't happy with this, you would just go straight back to that version, and that's fine. Now, slowly release your hips down, take the balls out, and just pause for a second, and the balls are just going to rest in your hand and kind of act as a little bit of like a sandbag action. And just notice circulation through the neck, through the trapezius, through the mid-back, the upper back, the shoulder blades. Deep breath in, and full breath out. Now carefully roll over to one side. We're going to come down onto the front now and do the pecs. Now most of you will be familiar with this way of doing it with the 2 blocks or books. If you're using books, just make sure they're the same size, otherwise you'll be kind of on a slight wonky situation. So if you find your collarbone, this bone across here, find where it attaches to the sternum, so this is the medial edge. You're just going to walk out. I'm underneath my sternum, underneath my clavicle, and I'm going towards the lateral edge, so away from the spine. And then when you find that little kind of bobble of bone that denotes that the bone's shifting into something else, you're just going to slide down. So where we are is kind of in this like singlet flap, right? This kind of front flap of the armpit. So we're going to be on the box, balls, arms behind us, lift, or we're going to come into the swing action. Now this is one where I have to do something a bit weird with my head because of my technology so that you can hear me. So forgive that. I will have the normal side of my head towards you. So the blocks are on their lowest setting next to one another. The corner nearest to you on the inside is where the balls are going to go. So make sure that it's your chest distance. And obviously when you come down, you can do a little adjustment if you need to. Some of you may be comfortable straight on the floor. Usually, and again, it's not everyone, but if you have breast tissue, particularly I know I have some new mamas here, you guys will definitely maybe even want more support, because of things going on and sensitivities in breast tissue. If you're comfortable on the floor, great. Usually when there's breast tissue, it just means that you don't get the compression, so you need to lift up to get in there. So again, try it with no block, see what it feels like, if that works for you better. So, I've got my balls on the corners of my blocks. You might want to angle them slightly again so that it's comfortable for your anatomy. And then your head should be able to just rest down. Maybe this is where you use your little towel to support your head a little bit, which for me is a good solution for my microphone. So, arms down by your sides, palms facing up. Let your whole body drape. So I actually want you to let your shoulders roll forward. We tend to demonize that movement. It's equally useful for many things. Now, option, you're just going to lift one arm a little bit, put it down. Lift the other arm, put it down. Note that you can do this at the wall, one side at a time, if it just doesn't feel good to do this much compression. So you would just sidle up to the wall or a corner and do one side at a time. So you would imagine that if you flipped me up, I'd be doing this standing at a wall. Now, option if you've got two sides and it feels good, reach your arms
forward, your palms face away from one another. And then like you were doing a breaststroke, reach back, and then your arms come back down the sides, you relax. Reach them forward, big sweep out, and release them down. One more like that if you're doing this movement with me. So a big sweep forward, and out, and down. And then wherever you're at, just take a couple more breaths. So if you are doing it at the wall, rewind me about a minute and do it again on the other side, right? Otherwise, if you're doing both sides, take a breath in, a breath out. Carefully lift your head, put your hands down, and just push yourself up to a seat. And I just want in your seat for you to notice, right? Take a moment to feel the neck, the traps, the chest, that integration of the back body and the front body. You might give your shoulders a few rolls, maybe cross your arms. Just notice, right? As always, you're just noticing this energy from the head just slowly being trickled down to the legs. Now, we're going to take one ball and go to the wall. Now, to start with, we are going to do the deltoid. Now, the deltoid, technically three pieces, right? Anterior, posterior, so front, back, and middle. For the purposes of our work, just think of it as the deltoid, right? It's this cuff. Some people, you can actually see the definition of the tissue. Anyone who's ever had like a sore arm after a vaccination, it's usually because they aggravate some tissue in the delt that supports a nerve. There's a nerve under there. So fun fact, if when you got your vax, you were like, I can't move my arm, it's usually your deltoid that is annoyed. So all that's gonna happen is we're gonna come into the wall, and I'm gonna give you a couple of options. I like to wind this. So you take your ball against the wall, and you're just gonna wind up some tissue, compress, and move the arm. You could also just roll the ball around on the wall. So I would love for you to play with both of those. So we're gonna do the right side first. So you will stand right side to the wall. Take your ball, if you wanna do the winding technique, press it into the middle of the delt, so right in my peacock feather. Wind some tissue around it, keep that. Push the ball in, keeping that winding. You can even just roll the ball once you're on the wall. I like to sometimes hold the ball, and then you're just going to swish the arm back and forth. If you have had a vaccination recently, obviously you might want to go a little bit further back or not skip this one, particularly if it was in the last week. Now another option is just to roll your deltoid on the ball. So you rock a little bit to the front. So I'm looking for this whole cuff, right? I'm not on the top of the shoulder, it's more on this kind of just upper side. This one is usually pretty inconsequential. Like usually folks don't like, not feel a great deal. This one is just normally like, for most people, unless you do very certain specific sports. So you just kind of checking it out, right? We just forget about this quite a lot, and it's pretty important. These tissues are more supporting characters in shoulder flexion, shoulder extension, and shoulder abduction. So the arm going forward, back, and out. But they're not necessarily the prime movers, which is why they tend to get a little forgotten about. Now, change sides. So again, if you want to do the winding, you can do this at the wall, so you kind of press in and then hold the ball and wind, or you're just going to take it for a little scrub around. I actually like to do both. So I'm going to push the ball into the wall, wind it up, and then move my arm. Right, so I'm just kind of grabbing onto some of these tissues and giving them a bit of shear. Or you can just kind of roll around and give yourself a little bit of space. This is great for those of us that do a lot of asana, or those of you working on hand balancings or handstands. These are kind of unsung stabilizers, like subtle stabilizers. They're superficial muscles, meaning they're right here, but they are doing stuff, right? So we want to make sure that we take care of them equally. And as always, if one side stands out to you a bit more, give yourself a bit more attention, right? You can play with that side a bit more. Take a full breath in and a full breath out. Now, come off that. This is a new one that I haven't done with you on a video before. What we're going to do is trace the scapula, right, the shoulder blade, with the ball. So the key with this is, obviously, I can't see you in your living room or wherever you are, so I can't tell you exactly how much you need to bend your knees. But if you start like this, you're going to be stuffed, because we're literally going to try and roll all the way around the shoulder blade. So for me, I start, if you find the spine of the scapula on the right side, so this bony ridge at the top, I'm going to put the ball just above the scapula, and then because I know I've got to go up and under, I start with my knees bent. Then I'm just rolling the entire border of my shoulder blade. The key thing is you've got to get to that bottom tip. So if you make the mistake of starting here, you're stuffed. You're not going to be able to get to that whole outline of the shoulder blade. So again, start at the top ridge, bend the knees quite a lot so you've got a bit of space, and then all I'm going to do is go around the bony process. So this is a bit of a weird one, right? You'll find that you'll move around in a kind of like, kind of non-traditional way. But the cool thing about this is it actually gets every single supporting muscle. This is one that I've been doing for a couple of months now, and you can go either direction, it doesn't matter. I was hoping when I filmed this to have my little scapular model that many of you know lives on my kitchen side, but obviously today was a bit of an emergency reschedule of location, so I didn't bring it with me. But if you can think about what that looks like, right, spine of the scapula down to the curves. Once you've done about 3 or 4, just stand and notice, and you might want to do a bit of movement of the arms. It's weirdly nice, but it's a little awkward, right? It's not like a classical rolling thing. So because I have to travel all the way around the bony process of the shoulder, you have to start kind of low so that you can like all the way around. This is why I wish I had a glass wall. I could do it with my back to you and you could see. So start with the left, go to the left side. So I find the spine of the scapula, which is the top part. Place the ball there. Bend your knees quite a lot. And again, if you're taller, you might need to bend them quite a lot more. And then all you're going to do is think about, like, can I go slow enough that I'm tracking all the way around. So this reminds me of those games, those operation style games where you have to like take the thing around the metal without, right? It feels a little bit like that. So it's weird the first time you do it, and you might need to readjust a couple of times. You could start on the bottom tip of the shoulder blade and work around if that worked better. But for me, that doesn't work in my brain. I like to start with the top down. And if someone kind of saw you right now, they'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Pretty sure someone's going to walk past in a minute to go to a Pilates class, and I'm going to be like, hello, this is perfectly normal behavior. Again, option to go in both directions, kind of sliding. The thing about this is you wouldn't want to do it on the floor because it's too much pressure, because we're going around quite precious bony structures. They're resilient, but we don't want to put too much. Oh, that was a good one. You might find some of these path throughs a little bit clearer than others, and it just takes practice. Do this a few times, and I promise it will become less weird, just like everything. Now, come off that, and just notice. For some weird reason, this one in my body feels really nice afterwards. It like clarifies that whole line of the scapula. So, from here, we are going to do a few in the back. Now, what I'm going to do first is grab the 2 balls and pop them back into their sock. Again, you're welcome to use your conjoined tool if you can. Now, with this one, depending on how cold it is in your apartment, and obviously I'm filming this in the studio, I have the heat on very slightly. If I was doing this at home, it would be hard because I'd be 17 jumpers deep. But if possible, I want the balls to track the skin. I fully understand if you're like, it's too cold for that. If you're in a cold climate, if you're in a warm climate, fantastic. Now, we all know where our spine is, right? So the spine in the middle. What's going to happen is we're going to start, so if you find the base of your rib cage. So like grab onto the sides of your ribs and then just kind of track down so you are underneath it, right? So you're just underneath the ribs. If you go just underneath the ribs, find this bundle of muscle which is just off the spine, it's kind of chunky. All we're going to be doing is starting with the balls on top of one another, just underneath the rib cage, and I'm going to be pressing the balls out and in, just on the left side. So it's going to look like this. This is another new one, for those of you that are regulars to these videos. I haven't done this one with you before. I like to put them through my body for a couple of months before I bring them to you. So I'm lying down. I'm going to expose some skin. Then you're going to take the balls on top of one another, so one on the top, one below, in the sock or conjoined. And I'm going to start, the top ball is just shy of my ribs, so we're kind of rolling across the QLs a little bit. Now, I'm not on the spine, I'm just off it to the left. And then all I'm going to do is lift my hips a tiny little bit, but keep my body heavy. And then I'm just going to scrub my body over to the right, so the balls go out to the left. And then I'm going to scrub back in again. Now the beauty of this again is go slow. If it's more comfortable to have your hips down, you're welcome. I'm not quite long enough for that to feel comfortable, so I just ever so slightly lift my hips. So I'm rolling from the erectors, the bony, just off the bones of the spine, out to the side waist, and then back in again. So I'm just underneath the ribs, which puts me roughly around the QLs. And this is like a side scrub or a plow, as my teacher Jill Miller calls it, that kind of snow plow quality of the tissues. One more, really slow, just scrubbing the balls out. And back in. And then just go ahead and lay flat for a moment and notice, right, what I feel in my body is that the side that I just worked on, it's like that curve of my back just feels bigger, like I feel like I kind of got longer on the left side, right? Remember that the QLs, they deliver side bending, they have a really interesting relationship with the psoas. They also share fascial connections with the psoas. So this, weirdly enough, those of you working on hip flexor stuff, could be helpful, right? Second side, so remember I'm just underneath the rib cage, I'm just off these big chunky muscles. If you feel your spine, just go just off them, you'll feel like this big, steady, like really sturdy, like ropey muscles. That's what we're gonna go on. So I'm on the right hand side, just below the ribs. The top ball is just underneath the ribs. My arms are wide, my feet are on the floor. I'm gonna lift up the tiniest bit, and then I'm just scrubbing my body slowly so the balls press out to that lateral edge of my body, so away from the spine, and then back in towards the medial, or the closest towards the spine. And then just go maybe 4 or 5 of those, but remember, slowly. And if you can't expose skin to it, it's fine, right? Over clothes is fine. The ideal for this is like, so even the balls in the sock, it's not perfect, right? Because we want the stickiness of the balls. So the ideal is to have the balls on skin, but trying to do this without the balls conjoined, for me anyway, ended in a bit of a mess. So it's almost like you're wagging your tail, right? You're just really slowly just kind of wagging and back. And then again, you can slowly take the balls out, rest the hips down, and just notice what you feel, like notice where just feels more spacious, like it's cleared out. That for me is one of my favorite massage techniques that my massage therapist does on my QLs. That's me trying to recreate that with the balls a little bit. So I hope you found it useful. Now, all we're going to do is do that same thing across the lower back, but what's going to happen is, and again, if you want to watch real quick, I'm going to sit up and show you. So I'm going to try and expose a little bit of skin, so I'm going to pull my pants down a tiny little bit, so I'm going for this lumbar region. And I'm going to just scrub the balls so they're still on top of one another all the way across. But when I get to the spine, I'm going to lighten the load of my body and then go back to the other side. So when you roll over the spine, just ever so slightly lift up and then go back when you hit the erectors. If that's too confusing, do half-half like we just did. But you guys are all smart humans. So what's going to happen is I've got the balls next to one another and I'm going to start just to the left-hand side of my body. And then all I'm doing is I'm scrubbing like we just did, but I'm in the lower back now. I'm going in towards the spine. Now, when I'm going to cross the spine, I just lift my hips a tiny bit. So it's almost like I'm skipping rope, right? Once I've cleared the spine, I lower back down. And you might find that your feet kind of wander, and I'm scrubbing the balls over to the right. And then I'm going to scrub back to the middle and I'm putting pressure onto the balls to my degree, like you're controlling it with your feet. When I go over the spine, I just like, boop, slightly less pressure and then over. And then when you get the hang of this, you can kind of do it a little bit faster. But think of this almost like an old school video game where you have to jump over the pile of lava. Like when you get to the spine, it's like slow, the floor is lava, and then really drop into the lumbar. And then slow through center. And again, I've just got skin exposed to the balls. You're most welcome to have it on clothing. But if this doesn't feel good when you go over the spine, do what we just did, that half-half action. So you would start on one side, scrub, 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 and then change sides, and scrub, scrub, scrub. So all you're doing is this. You're just going across, weight, light, weight, weight, light. So have a little play with that for a moment. This is one of my current favorite things to really, really steadily work on. So give yourself another couple of those passes, full back in and full back out. Now take the balls out. You're on your back. You might want to hug your knees in, give yourself a little squeeze. If you want to take a little twist, sometimes that can feel nice just to kind of let everything settle in. Now we're going to take our conjoined balls. You'll notice that the majority of this is actually done with conjoined, which I think is quite nice because it distributes the weight really beautifully as we slide energy down. We're going to come to the quads. Now, we're going to keep the balls in their sock or work with your conjoined tool. And all we are going to do is be in about the middle of the thigh, and we're really slowly rolling down, pausing to do a little side to side. And you're only going to do maybe 3 or 4 passes. So I'm starting, if you kind of find your frontal hip bone, go to the bottom of it. You're going to go back an inch or 2 down, so I'm kind of right on the groin line, if you will, so I'm not in this inguinal ligament here. I'll do the left side first so that you can see. Now, I'm just in the Sphinx pose to start. I'm going to take the balls to that point that we just talked about on the left side. And then you can bring that other leg out. You don't have to, you can work with both sets of feet. I just find it more comfortable to pop the other knee out to the side. Now, you can be all the way down, but know that we are going to slowly start to roll the body up so the balls roll down. And as you go, rock a little side to side. Try and relax the leg as best you can. So I really want you to think about moving at a glacial, like a glacier's pace. Right, so you're not just like, it's really slow and you're only going down. Right, so I'm continuing that kind of action of moving energy down, and you might find that you adjust your body forward and give yourself a little rock side to side as well. I actually did an Instagram reel about this one a little while ago, so you may have picked up this technique then. Slow. So what I'm thinking about doing is think about like a massage elbow, like a massage therapist's elbow or thumb. They're just plowing through the quads. There's a lot of really rich information here. Now, if you happen to have 4 balls conjoined in a single, you can do both legs at the same time. I know. My conjoined balls are currently at my partner's house for work with an injury that he's got in his knee that I'm helping him through. But you would just do both legs at the same time, which is ridiculously rich sensation. I actually would like to break it down. Now you'll notice that I'm still on my first pass. If you're going a bit faster than me, so I'm only going to do 1 time the whole way through, because that's really all you need, right? Because you're going side to side, then you're just slowly like pinning and pressing. So if you found yourself doing like 4 or 5 pass-throughs, my challenge to you is slow it down. I can hear you all going, no, we don't want to. Wow. Now you're literally going until you get all the way down to just above the knee. But see how I'm literally on this first pass through, so it takes me maybe 2 minutes to get all the way through. And the beauty of that is you've done the work, right? You don't need, I mean, you could do it 3 or 4 times if you have, 20 minutes to spare for your quads. But this is such a nice action to just pause. And you might notice that it just gets a little bit more sensation rich in certain points. Try and relax the legs, side to side movements. And then when you get down to that kind of knee point, take a breath. And slowly release. Now, I like to sit back into Vajrasana just to check out the difference. Again, if you want to do another 2 of those, that was a couple of minutes of really slowly working our way down. So you can pause me, do it again on that leg, or we skip over to the other. So I didn't mention this on the first side, but it helps to start lower down on your mat because you'll see that you've traveled. Right, so start. Bring the ball to the other leg again, just kind of underneath that groin line. If you're using the 4 balls, if you happen to have 4 balls, which is excellent, you would just do this kind of 1 time. Now, let the ball sink in. So if I'm like, nothing's really happening, try and relax the leg. You might notice a difference between the 2 sides. I like to do a little side to side. And then ever so slowly, I'm moving up, so the balls move down. The cool thing about this is you get that nice compression in between the balls. It kind of creates a little valley that it then presses the fascia through. So again, slow and steady absolutely wins the race. Softer tools win the race. I've been getting a lot of messages recently from myofascial release product folks trying to sell me their vibrating, rock hard situation, and no thank you. No thank you. It's personal choice, of course, but there's so much science now around softer tools, and every single one of my teachers, Jill Miller, Tiffany, Katja Bartsch, Rob Schlepp, these incredible fascia scientists and researchers are all kind of going, oh, Theraguns, no. So of course you do you, of course, but just know that the tissues, they like to be caressed gently, right? They like to be eased in. They like this slow kind of glacial pace, which again, is a little bit kind of the antithesis of how we like to work as humans, right? We want it fast, we want it now. But giving yourself time, I promise you will see differences, not just in the muscle release, but also in the nervous system. So it's how the nervous system then responds and calibrates and can take the information in and deal with it. So you might still get the muscle release with the like big, shiny, vibrating thing, but you don't then get the stress relief and the better sleep and all the things that personally I want as well. Now, slow motion, you're making your way down again, little side to sides. press yourself back. You can lie down for a moment if you want. You can sit up in Vajrasana. Just take a little moment to check in, notice. Deep breath. And out. Just doing a time check because I am very blind. You thought I would have put a clock down, but no. Now from here, we're going to take the balls out of the sock if you are using ones in the sock. And we're going to go to the very, very popular bullseyes of butt cheeks for the glutes and piriformis. And as always, we've all done this one before. This one isn't necessarily new. So if you have a particular movement that you like, you're going to choose that. So lying on your back, dead center, make your way down. I'm just going to have a little sip of water here. Knees bent, feet to the ground. Now, of course, you could extend your legs. I have a private client that this is how she feels the most. Great. Feet together, knees wide if you're comfortable in Baddha Konasana, stillness. Again, remembering that these are acupressure points that are calming. Feet to the ground, wide feet, knees knocking in, a little bit of movement. And just as you're lying on the ground and the spine is deloaded and your shoulders are heavy and your head is heavy, just kind of take stock of this kind of fluid energy exchange, drawing down. This is where the nervous system shift really comes in. It pays dividends, and in athletic recovery too, right? So much science now in athletic recovery of just, if you can get folks to take time for their nervous systems, when they're back on the field or back on the mat or back on the hike or back on the pole or whatever, then you're better, right? You're able to perform better. It's kind of this weird thing that if we can just learn to slow down, we can actually speed up with way more control. But that takes a bit of trust in the slowing down, which we can struggle with. Now, any movement that you're taking, just pause for a second, find something that is still and comfortable. And then slowly take the balls out. Pause, notice the quality of space in the back, the belly, breathe in. And breathe out. Now slowly come up. We are going to touch briefly on the calves, single side with a block underneath. Your myofascial video, first one next month, is all about shins, lower legs, ankles, feet, really specifically. So if this is something that you're like, I want more, it's coming very, very soon. But for now, you're going to take a ball on the block to the belly of the calf muscle, hands behind you, and just find a few points and flexes. You can, of course, add a little bit more weight. Yeah, so the first video next month is great for any of you who work on your feet, dance, working on inversions where you need the feet to control, like when you have this idea of what your feet are doing in space. There's a couple of techniques, again, that I haven't taught you before that will actually create a little bit, it will make your feet feel wider in a good way. So if you shove your feet in shoes all day, which is, you know, a societal norm, it's a really nice way of getting some space in the feet. So I encourage you to jump on that when that one comes out, particularly my hikers, walkers, runners, dancers, retail workers, hospitality workers, cyclists. Now pause, relax, and then just change the sides. So again, this is a personal thing, but when I do this practice, a lot of this is my own personal practice, and you can make circles with the ankles or weighted When we get here and I'm kind of supporting myself in my arms, because I've taken care of all this, this just feels more easeful. Whereas sometimes if I start here, my upper body's like, I want some love, and it can get a bit cranky. So this is just a nice way to make sure that everything feels like it's had some attention. Nothing is the petulant child of the body. And there's so many different options here again. In next month's video, I go into this in so much more detail. Shins, peroneals, these outer muscles of the shin. But this is just a nice one when we're touching on the whole body. We're looking to give everything a little bit of love. Couple more breaths. Now slowly release. We're going to finish with the feet. So we're going for the greatest hits. Again, in the next video, there's some very weird and wonderful ones for the feet coming, but let's just do the ones that we know. So one heel on the ground, you're bringing the ball to the ball arch of the foot, you're relaxing your toes, and you're just getting in there. You can scrub. It's funny, I filmed the other one for you guys a couple of days ago, and I did it in a weird order, and for like 2 days afterwards my feet were like, really light and fluffy, and today they're like, hey, you forgot about us again. So it just goes to show that when you find a nice one, do it often, even if you can take, you know, a few minutes a day to just really find some time and some space to give back. Now we're going to scribble, so stand nice and strong on that foot. You can also hold onto something. You will have all seen my home practice space, the bit with my kitchen side, and that can sometimes be very handy to have when I'm doing this one at home. Make sure that you cover all the surface area of the foot, and then stand off, and you can just notice for a second. And then second side, so other heel to the floor, find the ball in the ball arch of the foot, relax the toes, and you can just kind of straight up compress in, or find little different areas, or you can scrub. So again, the Living Rising thing is pretty subtle. Like again, that's not obviously me diagnosing anything. It's just an interesting pathology when we get stressed, tense, the rising kind of liver energy, which is obviously type A personality. So that can be sometimes when we're just really wound up, it can all come to heel and someone's head's going to explode. So this whole session was just pulling that energy down into the feet, giving you a little bit of released steam. Weirdly enough, I had kind of a low-key headache when I started filming this, which is now gone, which is actually quite lovely considering I have 2 classes to teach now. So maybe if you're feeling a little run down and tired, maybe there's an effect of mellowing, settling. You could try this video daytime, nighttime, see what works better for you. Obviously, I appreciate it's a bit longer, so it might not be an everyday kind of vibe, but let me know what time of day you did it and how it felt. Then we're going to scribble all over that left side or your second side. And go ahead and step off. Now, as always, if you want to sit for a minute, you can. If you want to take Shavasana for a moment, you can. Any props that you like, go ahead and just find a momentary comfortable seat, or legs up the wall maybe, or Shavasana. And just tune into the stillness within the body. The stillness of your posture, the stillness of your bones.
then notice the energy that has been stirred up in a good way. Your fascial layers are all interconnected. So as we take this type of practice, you're really allowing a better sense of communication. You're opening up channels for the body to kind of be in relationship with itself. Feel what's going on with its neighbors. Really take a moment to feel and listen, to sense. Now, as always, you are most welcome. Stay longer, relax longer, let me just play out. But if you have somewhere to be, things to do, somewhere to take this form which has hopefully had a little nourishment and space, and roll yourself over to one side. Press up to a seat if you're not here already. Join your palms together at the center of your chest. Take a full breath in. Big sigh out. As you're ready, you can open up your eyes. I hope this luxurious whole body roll out was useful. Please let me know what time of day you did it and how it felt, because it will be interesting for me to know. Again, first MFR next month is going to be the lower leg. Please keep your requests coming, so tell me, comment on the video, send me a message, so I can continue to give you what you want. If you're enjoying, please tag me on social media so that your friends can see it, and we get a little bit of promoting to anyone else that might be interested in checking out the videos. Have a lovely day, enjoy the space, and I will see you soon. Thanks everyone, bye bye.